Hello everyone, welcome to the Watchtower, and today we are going over the graphic novel, Dark Nights Death Metal. Alright everyone, like I was saying, today I'm doing a graphic novel review of Dark Nights Death Metal. This is written by Scott Snyder, and it's illustrated by Greg Capullo. And if anybody has read anything by the collaboration of Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder, you kind of know what you're going to be into. Big, crazy action, beautiful artwork, and then also really great character moments and everything. And this book has that as well. Really great art, big, crazy action, and also small, intimate character moments, and pulling back a lot from stuff that he's done over his last 10 years writing Batman and these related characters. So, but that being said, this is not a new reader-friendly book. This book firmly takes place within the DC universe, and it pulls from everything. So not just Scott Snyder's run, so you'll of course have had to have read Dark Nights Metal, The Batman Who Laughs, and also Scott Snyder's most recent run of Justice League. You've had to read all of that to understand all the little nuances and everything that he brings in, because there's a lot of callback to this. Also, there are references to Blackest Night, Infinite Crisis, Final Crisis, Crisis on Infinite Earths. There is a lot going on in this book. So you have to really be steeped in DC lore and DC mythology to really get everything. And I have to be honest, I had to go back and reread some stuff a little bit to try to remember some of the stuff, because, I mean, there's references to Infinite Crisis in here. I probably read Infinite Crisis 8-10 years ago. Same with like Final Crisis. I think I read Final Crisis once, like right when it came out. So I had to like reread some of this stuff and, and kind of refamiliarize myself with some of it, because there's like a deep dive in this book. There is a lot of deep pulls and everything in this book. So very, very, very much not new reader friendly. So I would say if you want to read this, you're going to have to do a little bit of homework, especially the Scott Snyder stuff that he's done, and then probably familiarize yourself a little bit with all the different crises. You can probably do a wiki search on some of that. You probably don't have to read all of it, but you definitely have to read some of Scott Snyder's other previous stuff to get this. But other than that, this was a pretty great read. It's not as good as Dark Nights Metal. I thought that was a pretty, for the most part, pretty much self-contained, insulated story. Really well set up. This pulling from a lot of different stuff. It kind of loses itself a little bit in the middle. It kind of has an identity crisis, I feel, in the middle of the story, but then at the end it pulls it back together and it comes back together really well. So it's a little bit of an identity crisis in the middle. It's kind of a lot of different voices and stuff going on. A lot of very big ideas are bouncing around. I don't feel like in the middle it's kind of scattershot and all over the place, but by the end of it, it comes back around and it pulls back together. But this book really, really shows why I love comic books. Because there's so much going on in this book. You can have big, crazy action. You can have 100 characters, in a book. You can have so many different characters. You don't have to worry about, people not knowing who they are or whatever, setting them up like in movies where you have to spend this time setting up because some people might not know who these characters are. I mean, this book probably has almost every DC character in it. I mean, if you want to see Jonah Hex and Batman fight together, this is the book for you, because Jonah Hex and Batman fight alongside each other in this book. Sergeant Rock is in here. So many characters are in this book from different eras, different universes, all pulled together, all working and everything. So this is why I love comic books. You can have big, crazy ideas, and you can have a ton of characters and everything that you really can't have in movies. Because first off, you'd have to really establish this stuff over years, and it's hard for movies to do that. And also, you have to worry about budget for movies. And this, you don't have to worry about budget. You can have big, crazy, multiple planet fighting and everything, and you don't have to worry about a budget because you can just have a guy. As long as the guy can draw it, you can do it. So the basic premise of this book is that the dark multiverse has corrupted the main DC universe and reshaped it into a hellish landscape. And it's separated most of the heroes, but Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, it separated them across this new, for better lack of a better word, wasteland. And it's all about them having to fight their way back together, come back together, and try to overthrow the Batman Who Laughs and reset the DC universe and expel the dark universe from it, and all about the sacrifice and everything they have to go to, and just all the craziness that ensues because of that. This is really a Wonder Woman book. It's less a Batman book and more a Wonder Woman book. Wonder Woman is pretty much the main character of this. A lot of her internal dialogue. I mean, there's some Batman stuff, internal dialogue as well, but mostly Wonder Woman. From start to finish, this is a Wonder Woman story. And I really, really like the way he writes Wonder Woman. I like the way he wrote Wonder Woman in Dark Knight's Metal and some of the other stuff that he's written her in. Justice League, one of them. I really like the way he writes Wonder Woman. Being strong, courageous, badass, but also full of compassion and love. And very much, about the truth and justice and everything. And just, so this is just a really great Wonder Woman story. So very, very nicely done there. As far as my issues with this book, so like I said, it's not new reader friendly, which isn't a knock against the book. It does, some books don't have to be. Some books are very much tied into mythology and everything. But this also, like I said, the middle and everything, kind of scattershot. There's a lot of ideas and stuff. Some of it doesn't really it's just all over the place. It's also the problem with because I finished, in the middle of the book, I finished one chapter, and without going into spoilers, they were getting ready. They had this, three-part plan to attack the Batman Who Laughs. There's a three-part plan to attack the Batman Who Laughs, and they broke into 3 different teams, and they're going to attack these 3 different targets. And then I finish that one, I go to the next chapter, and they're in the aftermath of that fight. I'm like, wait, what? Did I miss a chapter or something? I'm flipping through. I'm like, did they forget to put a chapter in this book? How did they just automatically jump to the aftermath of the fight? I'm like, I was very confused. So I Googled it, and the battle actually takes place in a companion tie-in issues to this. Those battles actually take place in tie-in issues. Which are going to be in a collected edition that comes out at the end of April. So you have this big battle in the middle of the story that's not in this main, not in the main death metal. So it's very, very, discombobulating and everything and confusing. Because I had to take a moment, why is it, it's just weird that they skipped. There's a little bit of a wrap up at the beginning of the next chapter saying what happened. But it's very weird. So now I'm going to have to pick up the tie-in collected edition to see if it makes all the story and everything makes sense and it's all wrapped up together and so I can get the full story. So I would have really liked for them to include that tie-in with this. Now I'm assuming that it was probably, I haven't really looked at it yet on Amazon, but I'm assuming it was probably a different artist. So the art probably won't have flowed together all the way with this. So maybe they decided to keep it separate so that the art would be, concise and everything and fluid throughout this. So there wouldn't be a breakup with a different artist. But why would not release both of those at the same time on the same date and kind of let people know that they need both of those to understand the full story? So that was a little bit disappointing, and it kind of hampers how I can review this book so far because I need to get that other one in to read it to see if the full story makes sense. But still, even with that, there's just a myriad of ideas. It's very discombobulating and stuff in the middle. And I'm assuming some of it is because they're jumping to other issues and stuff, but there's a lot of just like stuff that's like set up. Characters are introduced, and then you don't see them again. So you're kind of wondering, like, hey, what happened to these characters or whatever? So maybe they'll address it in the tie-in issues. I don't know yet. We'll find out when we look at all that. And this is kind of the culmination of Scott Snyder's work at DC. He's been going full tilt with DC since 2011, since the New 52 relaunch. So this is his last work right now for DC for the foreseeable future. He said he will be back at some point to do more, but for right now he's focused on creator-owned stuff and American Vampire and wrapping that up. So this is kind of the last thing with Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo together doing a book for DC proper for a little bit, which they both said they'll be back, but for right now that's it. And as much as I love Scott Snyder, I love his writing, I love the way he writes characters, I love his ideas, as he's gone on, all his ideas have gotten bigger and crazier and just out of control. But I'm glad that he's taking a little bit of a break and doing other stuff, and I'm really, really excited to see what he comes back with and does new, in a year or two or however many years he's going to be away. And I'm excited to read his creator-owned stuff that he's got coming out, and finally, hopefully, I can finish American Vampire. I'm way behind on that as well. But I feel like this is a book that only Scott Snyder could do. Because I think that Scott Snyder is at the point in his career with DC, and he's got so much goodwill because he's done so many great stories for them, that he can come in and he can pitch, hey, I want to do this crazy, out of control. And if you read Dark Knight's Meadow and you thought that was crazy, out of control, this is beyond bonkers. This pulls everything. This pulls from stuff from all over DC lore, like deep, deep, deep dive stuff. And I feel like this is something that really, like, he's out here, he can just, like, you know what, I want to tell this story with this character, with Batman and Wonder Woman and Superman and stuff, and I just want to, like, swing for the fences. And I just want to, like, just leave nothing, leave everything out there on the field. I don't want to leave anything in the tank in case I don't get to write these characters again. And he just goes for it. And he just goes for it, just straight up goes for it. And it's impressive. And I feel like he's one of only a couple writers that could go into DC and have the pedigree and the resume behind them to be like, hey, I just want to do, whatever. And if him, Grant Morrison, Jeff Johns, maybe Brian Michael Bendis, but they're really like the only four that can just go into DC at this point and be like, hey, I want to tell this wacky, crazy, out of control story that's just going to pull from everything. It's really going to set up your next year of storytelling and everything. And I think it's just like he's at that stage where he's at the stage with DC where he just wants to, if he can do it, if he has an idea, he wants to try it and get it out there. So yeah, I applaud him for just going for it and just swinging for the fences, because it's a fun book. It's a fun book. Crazy, out of control, rock and roll, death metal. Wow. Yeah, but such a fun story. And then going forward, this book sets up what DC is doing for the next year or so, which is Infinite Frontier, and the end of this story sets up with now everything is instead of like a multiverse or everything, it's an omniverse, meaning that everything that's ever happened in these characters' lives, they remember it's canon. So 1939 Batman, same dude as it is now. It's all the same version of characters. It's all from their beginning to now. It's all one character. It's not broken up. The crises, it just straightened everything out, and what they called unknotted the timeline. So they remember all their lives. It's not broken up. It's not a rebirth of universe, whatever. It's all one thing. So it'd be very interesting to see how Infinite Frontier, how that spins out and everything, and what they do with the next year of storytelling and everything, because this pretty much sets it up. And it's interesting because at the very end of this book, there's this whole thing where there's this like task force of heroes and villains set up to explore this new omniverse and everything, and everything that's being rebirthed, these worlds and everything. And they said there are characters that were dead before recent events that are now back, and they said they're not sure who all these characters are yet, but characters have been popping up, they've been dead. So it's interesting to see who's going to come back. Who are we going to see? I'm hoping we see the Justice Society of America again. I hope they're back in full force. Alfred? Is Alfred going to come back? We don't know. It's going to be really, really interesting to find out. And wrapping up, if you guys are really steeped in DC Comics and everything, if you like, digging into the lore and everything and reading different stuff, I would highly recommend you guys pick this up. It's not a perfect book. It's not better than Dark Knight's Metal in my opinion, but it is a solid story, and it has some really good themes in it and everything. And I just love the way he writes these characters. And I'm looking forward to the next thing that that Scott Snyder does in this universe. I think it's going to be really, really great, and I can't wait to see it. As always, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you the next time that I log in for Monitor Duty up here in the Watchtower.